I think, if I'm perfectly honest with you, big companies try and take the piss. In terms of, you agreed to 30-day payment term, why is it you're paying 60 days later? That to me is nothing but taking the piss out of small business owners. Happens far too often. But I think from a small business owner perspective, they need to be doing more. Past university, got a graduate job. After the first 6 months, nearly got sacked twice for not being up to speed and up to standard, because I soon realised what I learned at university compared to actual real life practice and actually dealing with like SMEs was completely bipolar opposite. Social media isn't a living proof of how successful someone is. What I soon realised during COVID was we no longer need to see clients in person. We no longer just targeted local businesses around the office. We could now deal with and work with any business around the UK. We work from home, work behind a screen on a Zoom call. And then I started this idea of going travelling, obviously post-COVID.
Yep.
And I was like, why not mix both together? Like, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that could happen was...
Hi, Ellis. Welcome to the show today. Let's start just with quite a bold question. What do most business owners get wrong when it comes to finance and money?
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
Jump straight into it, I think one of the most important things that people don't understand or get wrong about their money and their finances is understanding their profit margins. So understanding how much profit do I actually make per client? What does it cost to deliver my service? And how do I actually scale this? From the ability to understand how much money they're going to make if they take on extra clients, how much money they have to or allow them to spend on staff wages, new equipment, allow them to scale, and ultimately plan for taxes.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people misunderstand some of, I suppose, hidden costs. You know, you might be charging, I've had it myself, charge for a bit of work and you look at the hourly rate, you think, oh, this is great. And you realize actually you did hours of meetings before that, and then you needed some software to be able to do it. And, you know, and you're renting an office and so on and so on. And actually that hourly rate isn't anywhere near what you're actually taking home.
Completely agree. So people look at two things. They look at gross profit margin and net profit margin. They look at gross profit margin from a point of view of my services sell at £1,000 but cost £200 to deliver. So congratulations, you've got like £800 to play around with. But then you've got to take into account staff, software. Actually, how much time does it take you to deliver this service? Do you have any offices? Do you have any one-off costs, softwares, subscriptions, accountancy fees? Take all these into account, and actually your profit margins are a lot lower than you probably think.
Yeah, I guess it's also understanding just what is your base level of how much does it cost me just to operate this business? Because I remembered once my accountant sort of worked it out and was like, you need this coming in every month just to cover your costs. And it was like, okay.
Yeah, sometimes it's a shock to people how much the break-even like profit needs to be to actually just make no money.
Yeah.
And then you take into account how much money the director/owner wants to take out of the company. You add that on top, you take into account taxes, and you're thinking, now you actually understand how much you need to make. Now reality sets in, that's what you need to earn. Because they may think they want to take on £3,000 a month, and they need to earn £36,000 a year. Take into account taxes, fixed cost, cost of sales, your VAT, your taxes, your employing cost, and that 36,000 could be 70, 80, 90,000.
Yeah, of turnover. You know, but why do people get this wrong? Is it because most of us have that mindset of, you know, personal money? And what I mean by that is a lot of business owners come from being employed. So they see, oh, that's how much I get paid. You know, I need to own a business and get that coming in again, and not understanding actually business is a slightly different kettle of fish.
Yeah, I think it is a lack of understanding, if I'm perfectly honest with you, because people are used to being employed and they think they get paid into the bank X amount of money. That's theirs to spend. They can do whatever they'd like with. Now you have to take into account, say you VAT registered, you've been paid £1,200, well, £200 automatically is VAT, so it's not your money. You just charge the tax on behalf of HMRC.
Yeah.
Then you've got to take into account corporation tax, and then you've got expenses to pay on a monthly basis. That money is not yours. Then when you take the money out of the company, you potentially got dividend tax as well. So it's about planning and be actually aware of what's the legal requirements and what do you actually physically need to do.
What do people need to do just to start then? Is it just the basics of understanding their numbers and even just understanding terminology as well?
I would say correct, but also I would say it's the job of an accountant.
Okay.
You shouldn't be having these sort of questions if you've got an accountant that's remotely half decent, because you should be actually able to answer these yourself. The second thing is understand what your goals are, how much you want to take out of this company. Because if you said I don't need to take money out for the next 12 months, okay, perfectly fine. You can build it up. The second thing is if you want to start taking money from day one, how much profit do you need to earn? How much personal tax do you need to put away for dividends, etc., if you take money out of the company?
And I guess the other part, as well as just being able to earn enough that actually covers all of that, is cash flow.
Cash is king, as I always tell clients. I can say in your profit and loss report, the business could look stupidly profitable, but their cash could be like obsolete. The simple reason is you can have sales invoices on your profit and loss that have not yet been paid, so that money's not yet hit the bank account. But yeah, you've got expenses that you paid, which relate to previous months because you had a delay in payment, and that like wipes out your cash flow. So having like some sort of forecasting, being efficient with chasing up your payments once they're due, and that sort of thing helps build a cash flow forecast and actually healthy cash flow. Which you can have the most profitable business in the world if you've got no cash flow. Good luck.
Yeah. Do you think there's a slight issues, whether it's UK or whether it's worldwide, of certainly for small businesses getting paid on time? Because it's a constant thing that I speak to people about, and it is that quite often they're busy, but it's cash flow is causing them all the headaches. I mean, is it an issue that people need to be paying invoices quicker? Certainly bigger companies, but secondly, do we need to take more precautions and just be more aware of it?
I would say both. I think, if I'm perfectly honest with you, big companies try and take the piss in terms of you agreed to 30-day payment term. Why is it you're paying 60 days later? That to me is nothing but taking the piss out of small business owners. Happens far too often. But I think from a small business owner perspective, they need to be doing more and just be aware of what needs to be done. So have you got a contract in place which actually states what the agreements are? Has it been signed? Is it 30 days, 15 days after you're sending your invoices? Are you sending your invoices on time? Have they been approved, agreed in terms of the rates, what they expect? Just so there's no caveats that can actually be thrown up and actually presented and saying, what is this? Having a software which actually chases invoices. So your typical accountancy softwares, you can set up automatic reminders. If this invoice has not been paid, I don't know, 2 weeks before or after the deadline, chase it up. A simple thing is, once you send the invoice out, send up a follow-up email, say, actually, have you received this? Is it all in accordance with what we expect?
Yeah, get some confirmation up front, because I certainly know it that, if I had an invoice that was due after 30 days, it hits sort of 40 days and I chase them and, oh, sorry, no, I never received it. And then it's like, and whether that was true or not, but then of course you send the invoice again and then it's in there, oh, well, it's in our system for 30 days. So suddenly you're heading 70 days until you're likely to get paid. And then there's always someone on holiday. And that's what causes, I guess, a stress for business owners.
A stress because they've got things to pay, they've got their bills to pay, they've potentially got staff to pay, they might have taxes to pay. And it's like, you need to be doing as much as possible, as much as you're not being paid on time, correct? But you need to be doing as much as possible to avoid that actually being allowed to happen.
Yeah, because once it's already happening, you're in that sort of stressed sort of thing. And and then I've seen it and I've done it myself. You end up thinking, right, I need to generate some cash, and then you take on some clients who aren't, the perfect clients for you, thinking it'd be a quick, cash injection, and then that becomes a nightmare as well. So then you're dealing with a client you didn't really want, plus you've got someone else who hasn't paid you. And I think a lot of this stuff, business owners don't talk about, or maybe don't realize that it's easy to get into that situation if you're not on top of your finances.
Completely agree. It's a bad cycle and a bad habit people get involved in terms of they need cash, they get quick cash, which is not long term. They're then doing work underpriced. Then the people that they actually do the work for may not be satisfied, or if they are, they're then preferring their friends at a reduced rate, which means your profit margins are down. It's just a bad cycle to start.
Yeah, I guess when setting up, it's always hard to know how to price your services. I mean, what do you? I've heard people who sort of compared themselves to what else is going on in the market, but then equally, I know you're not aware of all the other little numbers and surroundings around that. I guess you need to understand actually what your expenses are. There's no point going, oh, I'm going to charge the same as someone a few miles down the road, but actually they've got a tiny little office and it's very cheap, and you've got a big office and you're paying more, and so on and so on, and therefore it's not comparable.
I agree. I think I personally struggled a bit at the start in terms of getting your pricing correct. The simple reason is potentially you don't have the case studies, the reputation to be able to price match potentially bigger, more established companies. But they've priced correctly? So potentially to win work, you may need to underprice. I've seen it happen a lot. Now, it's a short-term fix because as soon as you've got the case studies, you've proven the quality of the work that you can produce, that price needs to increase because you need to establish your profit margins at a healthy margin, a healthy rate to actually afford the software, the staff, the investments that you need to happen to actually grow and let the business become what you want it to become.
Yeah. Do you think it's worth people almost doing that introductory offer, and getting clients in rather than going in with a cheaper price, because then they might stay for years and years and years, and you're struggling to then get them up to what should be the cost of your services?
I would say it depends on what it is you're doing, what industry you're in. You can have an introductory offer. I think that works perfect. But also with the potential clients, like I've had the same conversations of it was undercharged at the start, but making them fully aware this won't be the price forever. The
Mm.
simple reason is it's been underpriced, and one or two things needs to happen. First of all, you need to have that conversation, and actually, if they love working with you and they see the value that you bring to the business, they should be more than happy to pay the additional money, which is the market value. The second thing is, if that doesn't happen, you need to be able to get clients in to actually allow you to get rid of those clients.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've heard stories of people literally firing clients, and not in this exact situation, but bad payers and things like that. Because actually, it's often said if they're not paying your invoice, then actually they're not a client anyway. So you might as
It's a
well
charity
try
at
and
this point. Yeah.
yeah, you might as well try and move them on. I mean, what are some other common, I guess, mistakes or myths that business owners make? Do you get people coming to you and they've claimed for things they shouldn't have done, or equally not claimed for things that they should be?
I would say both things. I think one of the most common things is people assuming they've made no profit because their bank balance shows relatively low numbers when what in reality has actually happened is they've essentially taken money out of the company over and above, say, we recommend a salary, and that's not an expense for the business. It's typically a dividend, which is a distribution of profits. Now, what typically happens is one of two things: they take more money out of the company than they're actually allowed to do, which has no effect on the profitability. The second thing is they're using the business account like it's a personal account to pay for personal transactions. Again, not allowable for business purposes, which in their eyes, for some reason, they think everything's a business expense because they run a business. which causes confusion and sometimes a bit of irritation in terms of the profitability of the business is actually a lot higher there than they actually think it is.
So
Equally,
what?
other side, people don't claim for as much as they want because they sometimes are scared of HMRC. I think the honest and best answer to that is actually, if you're ever in doubt, ask your accountant: is this a business expense? Is it relevant to my business? And before you actually ask your accountant, is it wholly and exclusively for the purpose of this business? Is it going to push the business forwards for the benefit of my business? If so, it's more likely to be a business expense.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is a business expense? Is it that it's got to be, pretty much wholly usable by the business?
Yeah, and no duality of purpose. Um, that's a typical caveat HMRC use. If there's a personal benefit to me outside of the business, there's a question: is that actually a business expense?
Okay. Yeah, because I'm sure there are lots of claims that people put in, and we're not going to name any names or anything like that. We don't want HMRC coming after anyone, but I guess there is that thing of a lot of people are scared, as in we don't want to get investigated. So, like you say, actually, I'm going to play it really, really safe, and they're not taking advantage of some of the things they could claim for. But equally, trying to claim everything is a business expense when realistically it's not.
Yeah, there seems to be like a massive divide. It's either play it too safe where you're not claiming like what you should be claiming, therefore paying too much tax. Alternatively, claiming for everything, which is not business expense. You go into Tesco to buy your weekly shop. Yes, I agree you have to live as a director, but that has zero effect on the business because you've got to eat regardless.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it is having a look at that. And I mean, what are some, again, without naming anyone or even just cases you've heard of, what are some of the most bizarre or sort of extreme things people have claimed for over the years? I mean, we've often heard of MPs' expenses. They're the ones that seem to appear in the press. There was people who had their moat cleaned, or sort of really expensive curtains and things like that. I mean, what are some extreme things that people have either been caught out for or actually been allowed to?
I think there's two big ones which I always see. People obviously like to travel abroad for networking events, for masterminds, that sort of thing. And it's like, yes, I agree, you can travel to said place. For example, Dubai. There may be a business mastermind which you want to go to, perfectly fine. But if then that mastermind is, say, 2, 3 days long and you're there for 10 days, it's like, well, what are you doing the rest of the time? Because, yes, maybe a day either side for travel, but the rest of it then becomes a personal holiday. Therefore,
Mm.
the flights, the hotel, all become disallowable because you've gone on a holiday and tried to wing in some sort of mastermind.
Yeah.
Another typical one is like home offices. Now, most people work from home to some degree, whether it's a day or full time, and it's what can they fit in this home office as a business expense? So we're talking sofas. For some reason, it gets renovated every other week. Um, so an awful lot of these expenses try to be claimed through a business. And it's like, well, actually, HMRC won't allow that.
No. And I guess that is, something that you want to avoid being investigated by HMRC, even if you have actually been on the ball. Actually, it can add some stress. I guess having an accountant actually not protects you, but there's someone else who understands your figures much more, and it's like, look, we've got all this right. It's all been claimed correctly, and actually that can take a bit of pressure off.
Yeah, I think it's smart to actually review what's going on in your business and take the emotional side out of it because they may be so like emotional in their business. They're thinking, yes, this is a business expense. And I'm turning around and say, actually, HMRC won't allow this. They won't allow this to happen if this is actually claimed. And I think, yes, whilst you may get investigated and you may pass with like flying colours, it's still an added stress, admin time, and actually time out your day where you're actually not working on your business. You're doing something because you're being checked. It's a case of
Yeah.
you don't want it to happen because it's just unnecessary.
Yeah, yeah, that all makes complete sense. I mean, talk to me about your business journey then. I mean, how have you grown your business, and where did this all come from?
So the business started operating 4 years ago on the 1st of August, so just past our birthday. Um, the reason I got into actually accountancy, to take it a few years back, is it was probably the only subject at college which I was half decent at. So I was like, okay, we'll try university. What's the worst that can happen? Went to university. Did I actually enjoy it? Probably not. It was just something else actually pretty all right at. So past university, got a graduate job. Worked at that company for I think 5 years. It was in total. After the first 6 months, nearly got sacked twice for not being up to speed and up to standard because I soon realised what I learned at university compared to actual real life practice and actually dealing with like SMEs was completely bipolar opposite in terms of the theory compared to practical like knowledge. So after the 6 months, I was like, okay, I had a decision to make. Is accountancy for me? Or do I actually just like put my head down and actually see what I can do with it?
Mm.
So for the next year and a half, my life literally consisted of getting to work, go to the gym, 6 a.m., work, stay in the office until around 8 p.m. to do like studying for my ACC exams. So for a year and a half, that's what my life looked like. There was literally like zero social life. Um, in that time, I obviously passed my ACC exams, had numerous promotions in the company. Once I passed the exams at 23, I think it was, I was the office manager, which is a strange feeling because I was the youngest in the company by some distance.
Right.
Yet everyone was older than me. They'd been in the company a lot more years, but I was trusted to actually like push the business forwards. So from a sales point of view, networking point of view, and actually client management point of view, I was the go-to person, which caused a few people to get upset because they looked down on me because of my age. I then wanted to go traveling. I was like, I never actually got the chance to go traveling after university. I wanted to see the world. And I was like, fuck it. I'm going to go traveling. Told my boss. In the meantime, sorry, the ownership changed at the company. Then I told the new owners that I'm going to go traveling. COVID then happened. That stopped that. And I was like, this is great because this is what I've been working towards, sort of thing.
Mm.
What I soon realized during COVID was we no longer need to see clients in person. We're no longer just targeted local businesses around the office. We could now deal with and work with any business around the UK. We work from home, work behind a screen on a Zoom call. And then I still decided of going traveling, obviously post COVID.
Yep.
And I was like, why not mix both together? Like, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen was business fails. I go back to a 9 to 5 and I've not actually lost anything. I've
No.
just gained a whole lot of experience. So this great master plan finally actually come to fruition. I went traveling, started the business, traveling for 5 months around the world. The back end of COVID in 2021 was probably the best personal decision I've ever made, but worst business decision in terms of trying to get clients while you're here, there, and everywhere around the world. It's difficult. Make
Yeah.
zero mistake about it. And I actually didn't. The business wasn't like in a position where I could actually do this full time. So come back into Manchester, December 21. Moved back with my parents. I was like, Mum, I actually can't afford to pay you rent. Can I actually like stay here for 2-3 months? Let me just sort this business out, and I promise you, after 3 months, it'll be perfectly fine. Started posting a lot on LinkedIn. I was like, actually, who do I actually like to work with? Who can I relate to? Because I've been on plenty of sales calls, and I just kept on getting no, 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 no. Cut prices, still got no. I was like, well, what's going on? It's obviously something I'm seeing on the calls. I'm actually not like attracting the right people.
Mm.
So then we started targeting young entrepreneurs and startup businesses because I understand their experience. I know what they need to do, and it was a point of like, that's my target market. Then arranged a networking event for a lot of these like startup businesses, which was stressful as anything, but also a good PR opportunity for the business.
Yeah.
That went down well. We then just started to snowball to the point we have now like 380 clients, maybe 400 clients, 6 members of staff, and yeah, everyone's based in Manchester in the office. It's been
Wow.
a whirlwind.
I mean, when you moved back in with your mum and you said, yeah, in 3 months, let me sort this out. I mean, was there some fear there? Were you really determined? What was it that you were feeling?
I think it was everything. Like, I hate the feeling of failing, so that was driven. Admitting that I've actually not done the right thing and not achieving what I set out to achieve. Because my mum was like, well, maybe you should start looking at jobs, what's out there, just to get a feel for it. And I was like, no, ignore that. And that's not happening. I'm making this work.
And did she support you in that? As in, like,
Yeah,
accepted you
100%.
saying that?
100%. I think she wasn't doing that out of being like nasty. I didn't want me to see me succeed. It was just a case of I'm her little boy and she's like scared for me, sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's, good. I mean, that is a mother's role quite often to, protect, isn't it? And,
Literally.
sometimes actually, you need to be allowed to take a risk and do some things. And what was great was you said it was a sort of a failing, but actually it was a learning. And I think that's very true with the traveling. It's the best thing you did, but actually it's hard to do that and grow a business, especially right from the start.
Yeah, I think one of the things I didn't like about my like previous job was I didn't like working in an office every single day, having to travel to the office every single day, being told you start at 9, you finish at 5, you've got half an hour for your lunch at 12 o'clock, and it's like I wanted to have a complete freedom and literally flip that whole thing on its head. I work when I want, wherever I want, and actually do whatever I want as long as the clients get served. Now that mentality, to an extent, is still in the business. The staff, they have to have a 3-hour crossover period. So we have to be online for 3 hours per day. The
Okay.
rest of the time, I don't really care when they start and when they finish. As long as they get their job done, they deal with the clients get responded to within 24 hours, then perfectly fine. You can work wherever you want, whenever you want.
That's a nice little model. And I guess that actually suits working with, more startups, younger entrepreneurs and things like that, because, very much now the world we are used to working remotely, being on a call and chatting to someone and having that little bit of flexibility, that the days of it having to be office based, having to be 9 to 5, actually, while that's probably sitting there with some much older businesses and there's something to be said for a bit of tradition and things like that, but equally that there are other ways that we can work that give people more life, I guess. And that's one of the points of having a business or even just working.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the key things that I was experiencing is like you see these people like so many hours a day, you speak to them so many hours a day, and I don't want it to be too formal. I don't want you to have like this pressure of actually being in this office. I need to wear a shirt and tie. I need to speak to clients a certain way. It's actually just making it actually more enjoyable experience. You actually enjoy working with the staff, the team, the clients, and in an environment which you actually enjoy and actually fits around your lifestyle. Yes, I agree, two can collide, but two can collide and actually make something which suits both parties.
Yeah, I guess there's options for everyone. And do you find that by doing that, actually, you're not encountering some of those issues and stresses that normally come with a business? Do you think you've got your work life balance right at the moment?
As a business owner, I'd probably say I would struggle to have work life balance. I don't think that actually exists too much as a business owner. For the employees, 100%. It's what I aim to do with them is actually make sure they actually enjoy the work, but also they work to live. They don't live to work.
Mm.
They do whatever they want outside the office hours and actually make sure as long as the work gets done, then so be it.
Yeah. But as a business owner, I think, maybe lots of people need to understand actually work-life balance, it's sort of there, but often the work is still going to be the big priority because you're just constantly
Yeah,
thinking about it.
especially as a startup business, I think it's a constant pressure, stress of actually, I don't think it's ever going to go away. I agree as the team grows and as they take on more responsibility, that buys back my own time. But then it
Mm.
depends on what you want to do. Do you want to go it further? Because essentially all you're doing is create that stress again. You're just in a cycle. Or are you satisfied and happy with the business the way it's at? Actually saying, actually, I'm good. I'm just going to buy back some of my own time. Actually, if you got a family, spend some more time with your family, etc.
Yeah, I've often heard, many business owners have said, oh, when this happens, things will calm down, or when I get another member of staff, or when I do this, I'll be able to buy time back, and so on and so on. But actually, you're just changing the issues that you deal with. Removing one headache, gaining another. Business is hard. I think that's something people need to understand.
Yeah, I must think it's glamorized. Like you see on like social media, this whole glamorized business owner lifestyle, and it's far from that. It's far from ever being what it's made out to be. It is stressful. You've got people's wages to pay, people's mortgages to pay, clients to actually deal with, a reputation to build and withhold. And it's like, actually, there's a lot on your plate there. Just that alone. That I feel like everyone wants to build a business, everyone wants to do X, Y, Z. Vast majority of people should never do it, should never consider it, because it's just not for them.
Yeah, just because you need to be able to deal with that stress. I mean, how do you deal with it? What's your escape?
My escape is honestly is fitness. In two caveats, I like to run. That is probably one of the most. I hate running. I say I like to. I actually hate running physically, but I find it so peaceful. As in, like I can switch off. I'm just focused on my breathing, my legs in front of me. Just keep going and see how far we can get. That and actually like fitness competitions and challenges. That's probably my escape, and that's why I probably do far too many.
Yeah, and I guess healthy body, healthy mind, and all of that, and that's what keeps you going.
Keeps me sane. It's probably the best way to say it.
Keeps you sane. I like that. So what is next for you then? What are you thinking? Are you looking to, keep growing the business?
Yeah, my honest thoughts are people ask me all the time, where am I going with the business? What's the aim? What's the goal? Do you have a revenue figure, client target, staff member count that you want to achieve? And it's like, no, I actually don't. Like, as an accountant, I actually don't. What I do want to do is see how far I can push this business. Like, what am I physically capable of creating? If that's 10x, if that's 2x, if that's just as we are at the moment, then so be it. But as long as I know I've pushed myself in the business as much as possible, then that to me is where we're going. In terms of actually like services, so we're looking at splitting the business into two. Half of it will be your say like your day-to-day traditional accountancy side of it, with a few added more services such as quarterly reporting, monthly reporting, etc. The other side is like an outsourced CFO style role.
Okay.
We'll get involved a little deeper in much bigger businesses and actually helping them understand what's going right or wrong in the business and how can we actually grow their business further for them.
And I guess that's fitting in with, you started off 4 years ago, predominantly working with startups, newer businesses, young entrepreneurs. Actually, 4 years later, there'll be some of those who are, almost creeping into that space, and you still want to be able to serve them.
Yeah, it was actually a nice experience. Like a lot of businesses at the start of the phase, actually seeing them grow and actually being on that journey with them. And actually, one of the initial calls we have with them is actually what we're trying to do here, what we're trying to build, where we're actually heading with this business. And 9 times out of 10, people say, yeah, I want to scale, I want to do this. And it's nice to actually see them achieve that, because I think everyone has this idea of wanting to scale this business, but very little people actually do actually achieve what they actually set out to achieve.
What do you think is the stumbling block? I mean, I think it's, only a very small percentage of businesses actually last past a year, less so 5 years, and even less 10 years. I can't remember the exact stats, but most business, I mean, the truth is most businesses fail. Why do you think that is?
I would put this down to 3 different things. Being good at what you do. I feel like people often shortcut that and take some 6-week fast track course, expect to be an expert in that field, and never stop. What you think you should never do is never stop learning.
Yeah.
Never stop trying to master your craft and actually continue to get better and learn more and actually get good at what you do. I think people learn something and think that's it. That's me done. I can do it for the rest of my life. The second thing is cash flow. Understanding, one, margins, but two, what's coming into the bank, what's leaving the account. So actually understanding that from a business point of view. And actually, the third thing is living the lifestyle. Far too people spend too much money and have zero understanding of what they should be spending. Their lifestyle soon exceeds their income, and they go broke.
Yeah, you do see that, don't you? That businesses grow and grow and then go under. And it was actually not that they couldn't generate business, it was the fact that actually the expenses were just overtaking because, yeah, getting caught up in it, or whether that's trying to keep up with the perception that other people put on social media, and you think, well, I have to be like that, and actually you just outrun yourself.
Yeah, I think what's the phrase? Keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
I think that still very much rings true in an era of social media where everyone's trying to show an image of them being successful, healthy, fit, living their best life, and it's actually, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Like, you just do it for you. Just because you've got a nice car doesn't mean you're successful. Um, I know plenty of business owners who have these amazing cars, amazing lifestyles, but their bank balance is empty. And it's actually, social media isn't a living proof of how successful someone is.
Yeah, I mean, you do see that quite a lot, don't you? And actually, now that lots of what we would traditionally call those sort of high value purchases, cars and things like that, are actually quite easy to get on finance and lease them and things like that. So, whereas before having a new car was a sign of wealth, we're sort of kept into that, when in fact, all it means is you're managing to make that monthly payment just and keep up with it. Whereas actually, that car's just depreciating.
Yeah, I think people waste too much money on trying to look successful, and instead they could actually invest that money into the business to actually become successful.
Yeah. I mean, what if you were to sit down with someone now, they're about to do a startup, what advice would you give them?
Are you ready to be on an emotion roller coaster? Is probably the first thing, because you're going to doubt yourself so many times. You're going to want to quit so many times. I think a big thing is actually taking your ego and stripping that back down. Because you've signed 4 clients in a month does not mean you're successful. Does not mean the clients are going to sign on for the rest of their lives. You will lose clients, and it's actually dealing with that emotionally and financially. Um, the next basic advice is actually understanding where we're going with this business, what we're trying to achieve, and actually what is the foundations, what we're actually good at. Are we pricing it well? Are we targeting clients well? Are we actually getting feedback from clients? Because I think people are too easy to go out and get new clients all the time, when actually the biggest way or most sustainable way to actually grow a business is actually keep your existing clients,
Mm.
potentially upsell them, actually get good at what you do, so that actually they're so more tied into your business because you provide more services.
Yeah, I think that's really key, and there's a lot of people who misunderstand actually the benefit of those clients, and they say your network is your net wealth, and or whatever the saying is, and it is those people you're already working with, or even if you worked with them 6 months ago, assuming you did a good job, what is it that you can educate them about, whether it's an upsell, whether it's a new service, because quite often businesses a year later look slightly different. And then you hear of this client going, "Oh, I've just bought this, or just got this company to do this." And you go, well, I do that. And they go, "Oh, I didn't know." And it's like, well, whose fault is that? You've keeping in touch with people, doing a good job, and then making sure they know all the ways that they can actually buy from you.
Yeah, and making sure they're aware of what services that you offer, and actually make sure you get feedback from them. What did you not like? What did you like? What can we do differently next time to actually improve this experience?
And I love that. What didn't you like? Or even just asking, what's one thing we could have done better? I've often used that of, you ask someone for some feedback and they say some nice stuff, but it hasn't really, again, it's boosted your ego, hasn't it? It's made you feel good, but it hasn't given you anything actually to be able to get better. And often people are too polite and maybe don't want to say the other bits. But if you specifically ask, what is one thing we could do better? Then actually you can generate that feedback, which is just going to help you improve.
Yeah, I don't think people are very good at actually taking criticism, of actually saying, you're not actually good at this. And it's like actually accepting people said that to you, whether you believe it's right or wrong, but actually listen to them, actually trying to understand what they're trying to say. Because ultimately, that improvement on the back of that conversation could lead to your business being so much better what you do.
Yeah, taking the feedback and using it to actually improve what you do or adjust. And you soon find out, actually, this I'm really good at, that I'm not. And in fact, understanding that as a business owner, you're not good at everything. And either you need to get other people in or you need to employ outside services, but no one can do it all and be brilliant at it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think too often people want to try and do everything themselves. And I get, as a small business owner, your head of marketing, head of finance, head of delivery, head of operations, that's just what is required from you at the start. But as soon as you can afford to, we obviously links to profit margins, go out and get the best in your industry, or actually someone that's just better than you at doing it, and use it as a stepping stone to improve your operations, improve your delivery, improve your marketing. And it's not everything has to be responsible for you.
I love that. That's some great insights. Ellis, thank you so much for chatting to me today. I've really appreciated, your insights and your story and your journey. And I'm sure we're going to hear lots more from you as you continue growing the business. So yeah, once again, thank you very much for joining me today and enjoy the rest of your day.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Balanced Ambition podcast. I genuinely hope the stories inspire you as much as they inspire me. If you found value in today's conversation, please share it with a friend. And remember, by subscribing, you won't miss an episode, and it would truly mean the world to me. Stay balanced, and I'll see you next time.